So we are, as we said earlier, in the final message of the year, and we're going to talk about Deal or No Deal. Deal or No Deal is a show that's on TV. I literally just learned about it in the last 2 weeks. I've heard about it before, but I didn't really know what it was. And then one day I came in and Deanna was watching the show, and she kept watching it, and she was getting more and more addicted to it. And you know, if for any of you who've ever binge watched a show, it's like, well, we got to watch it, and then you got to see what the next one is, and what the next one is, and what the next one is. So when the only show that I think our family as together has done was the show Lost, and like we had to you just wanted to go to the next one and see what they were going to do next, and then we actually watched the last season together as a family, and it made us crazy because you had to wait a week in between the shows. Well, in this Deal or No Deal, it's literally like a talk show, or not a talk show, a game show, excuse me. And so there's no the first show doesn't go to the second show, doesn't go to the third show. So I start watching the show, and I'm trying to get what the hook is. And I'm watching, and I'm like, this is the dumbest show I've ever seen in my life. But 5 shows into it, I'm still sitting there watching it because I'm trying to understand, what the attraction is. But obviously it attracted me, and there was something that caused me to want to look at this thing. So basically what it is, for those who haven't seen it, and I don't even know how many people it is that come out, but there's 25 to 30 ladies that walk out with briefcases, and the briefcases all have a number on them, and then inside those briefcases is a dollar amount. And so someone gets chosen, and their whole means of existence for this show is they pick out one of the briefcases and they put it on the table that's next to them. And their hope is that inside that briefcase, whatever they're going to take home is going to be the $1 million, because that's the prize. It's not like, it used to be like the pyramid game where you'd win like $10,000, and like Family Feud, which by the way is the biggest ripoff of any game show out there, because you make $5 times whatever the thing is, they make nothing. But in this show, it's like big money. And so I'm waiting because, you think, okay, they're going to ask questions, they have to know trivia, they have to have some kind of talent, they have to be able to sing and dance and chew gum at the same time. There's none of that. I mean, there is no intelligence whatsoever involved in this. You don't have to have any skill. You don't have to be tall. You don't have to be short. Nothing. And so it's like I'm just watching. So I'm like, this is so dumb. It's beyond all imagination. But once again, I'm watching it. So basically, what happens is they pick the one briefcase out, and they put it here, and then they start picking back and forth. And there's I don't know. Let's say there's 26 of them. I'm just throwing that number out there. They keep picking, and it's from a small dollar amount to a really big dollar amount. With that last dollar amount is $1 million. So they start picking by 5 of them. They take them out, and then 8, and then 10, and the numbers start getting down. And then what they if you've watched it, you know, but I didn't know. Up above where they're shooting is this lady that's a banker, and you only see her silhouette. So all of a sudden she calls in, and when they call in, it's like, I'm going to make you a deal. And the deal is, and you have all these numbers that are up there, if you'll walk away right now, I'll give you $50,000. And then the person has to, make the deal or no deal. And always at first they say no deal, and they turn it down. Well, actually, I don't know that's always that way, because I've only seen 5 shows. But in the 5 shows that I've seen, everyone turned out. And maybe it was a greatest hits. I don't have any idea of that either. But they put the thing and they push it down and they keep going. And it's the next one. So the deal keeps going up and up and up. And so you're watching this, and some weird things take place. So here's the first thing that took place. And I'm just going to be honest with you. The first one I watched, I wanted the person to lose so bad it was unbelievable. I know it's terrible, but it's just like sometimes people just rub you wrong. I know I'm that kind of person. Sometimes I just rub people wrong. I don't mean to rub them wrong. I just do. It's just how I am. And I'm sure that there's other people that, rub you wrong and whatever it might be. But it's like, I felt terrible because it's like, here's this person who could probably really use this, and I'm rooting against her. So now I'm feeling guilt, right? Now I'm taking this guilt with me. I don't even know this lady. I'm judging her on this 20-minute show that, I'm watching, that I don't even know why I'm watching anyway, but for whatever reason it's drawn me in. And then it gets to a point to where the banker keeps calling, and the banker keeps calling, the banker keeps calling. Well, then it's like, okay, I've settled in. If she's come this far, at least want her to win a lot of money. So the deal keeps going up, and it goes from $50,000 to $80,000 to $100,000 to $150,000. Next thing you know, They're getting into like some serious money. I'm talking like $250,000, $300,000, that kind of stuff. And they have to make like a real decision. And so, for whatever reason, everyone that's on the show, or at least the 5 shows I saw, they all think that they're dancers, so they have to dance to the music that's going on in between, and some of them can't dance at all, and it's really kind of embarrassing. And you're thinking, okay, if I'm ever on the show, I promise myself I won't dance because my kids will make fun of me forever, and I'll end up in some kind of viral video somewhere. But you're watching it, and this lady, she's like getting up to close to $300,000. So now you start to ask yourself a question: How much then would I take? Like what's the number that I need? And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, if it's $1 million, you're gonna lose $500,000 of taxes anyway. So you have $500,000. $500,000 can go a long way, right? If it's $250,000 and you make $125,000 of that, $125,000 can go a long way. But it's always funny to me because at first they're all like, I'm here and I'm here for one reason only. I'm here to get the $1 million. I'm going to make the $1 million. I'm taking that $1 million home. It's going to be in my briefcase. They go through the whole thing and they're like all confident, all those other things. And all of a sudden, it starts to hedge a little bit, and then they start to compromise. You know, I came here for one reason. I came here for one reason only, because I believe in this briefcase is that $1 million thing. And that's why I'm here, because I know it's in this one that I chose out of 25. And they tie a story around it and their family and all those other kind of things that are going on. No one that I saw made it to where they actually got to their case, because they negotiated at some point in some time and said, you know what, I compromise and I'll take this much, and this is good enough as far as to what I have. And so for what I need and for what I'm looking for, my daughter's getting married, we have a grandchild coming, and whatever it might be. I need a car, or we need a boat, or we need a house, or just whatever. They all ended up getting to that point where they never got to that final amount. But here's the thing that happens at the end. They can't just trust that, hey, the $1 million, it was up there somewhere. They have to open up all the final briefcases. And so they have, okay, which one would you have chosen next? And they go all the way through, and then they have their final one that they negotiate on. So it's like, oh, okay, it's over, the show's over, and it's done, and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, all right, let's move on. And it starts up again. So what do? I got to watch it again. Why? Because I want to see that next person, how far they're going to go. And it's almost the exact same thing. They go down to 3 or 4 briefcases, they make their final deal, and then they go. But every time they're like, no deal, no deal, no deal. So I'm sitting there thinking about it. I'm like, I wonder how often people do this when it comes to their faith. Like, do they see God as like, you know what, God, I'm going to do this much for you. I'm going to live this much, for you. And I'm going to get this. No matter what I'm going to do, I'm going to be the guy that's going to, always be the one that's willing to pray. I'm going to be the one that's always the one that's willing to listen. I'm going to be the one that when I give advice, it's going to be based on your word. If people are struggling, I'm going to be that light, whatever it might be. But then when it really comes down to it, it's like, well, I'll help it if it's people that I know. Or I'll help it if it's people that are family. Or I'll help just complete strangers. I'll be encouraging, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Tuesday and Thursdays are mine. Just for some reason, I struggle on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And on the weekend, all bets are off. I'll go either way, whatever it might be. So it's kind of like a deal or no deal kind of thing with God. And the more I was watching it and thinking about it, I think sometimes people live their faith that way. I think that we live throughout the year where we're like, you know what, when it's good for me, God, and I'm pretty sure what I have in the briefcase is really going to work out for me, then I'm going to be fine with it. But all of a sudden, when I'm presented with the fact that, man, I'm not quite sure, I think I'm going to have kind of a conversation with God about this. And I'm going to tell myself that no matter what, I was going to go to here, but I'm going to kind of negotiate and compromise and do just enough so that I think God recognizes it, and maybe some other people recognize it, but really at the end of the day, I'm really not living the way that I want to live before God. And I think that's most of us as believers. I think it's most of us when it comes to our walk with our spouses. I think it's when it comes to our walk with our kids, with where we coach, where we teach, whatever it might be. And because many times the one thing that gets in the way with our walk with God is ourselves. And so here we are, and it's 364 days into the year. And so you always start then, okay, what am I going to do for next year? How am I going to treat next year? And how am I going to live my moments next year? And it has to start with how you live this year. Now, we've all had struggles, right? It's all been sickness. There's some of us had death. Some of us have had struggles. We've had loss. We could have had a job change. We could have had struggles with our finances. We could have all the above. We could have dealt with anxiety. Maybe I was a worrier or whatever it is. I don't know what the future holds. And man, I'm so impatient. I'm just an impatient person. I procrastinate with everything. I just never get anything done. We all have something that holds us back from truly living our life to the fullest when it comes to our walk with God. And so when you look back at 2018, that's the first place that you're going to go to when it comes to how we want to treat our relationship with God. I didn't do this, I struggle with this, whatever it might be. And it's fair. Here's the thing though. 2018's over. And you've got one day left, right? And the day that's tomorrow, some people are going to party so much tomorrow because they're like, oh, you know what? I missed out this whole year, so I'm just going to give everything over tomorrow. Maybe that'll help me forget 2018. Then Tuesday's going to roll around and 2019 is going to come, and you're going to realize, wow, I'm starting over. So what's going to be different, especially when it comes to my walk with God? Because here's the thing that you're going to find today, and I'm going to find today. When I get that relationship right, and I'm never going to be perfect at it. When I get that relationship right, every other choice, every other moment, every other step, every other relationship, every other financial decision, every single thing that I choose to do, when I choose to have God at the forefront of it, it changes my day, my moment, my week, my month, my year completely upside down. So today, it's a deal or no deal. You get to make the deal, or you can choose not to make the deal. It's completely up to you. You don't have to choose between 26 different briefcases. You don't have to hope that there's a certain amount in it or a certain amount not in it. I want to show you a way today that you can make that deal with God to live with Him every single day. No, there's not $1 million at the end of it. But heaven is, and heaven is worth much more than any dollar amount that we can even fathom. So how is it that we can be different as believers? How is it we can be different so that others can see how important our walk is? Because when we show the importance in our lives of how important God is to us, people can't help but see the difference. So we're going to start in Isaiah chapter 60 today. Of all places, we're going to start in the Old Testament, which doesn't seem right. It seems like, well, why would you go to the Old Testament? Wouldn't you go and share a message around Jesus? And we will over the next few weeks. But today we're going to go to the book of Isaiah. Isaiah was a prophetic writer. And what that means is that he was a prophet. And so a lot of the things that he wrote points to Jesus. In fact, if you were to go and read Isaiah 63 is a very pointed chapter. If you were to read chapter 63 of Isaiah, you would think, oh my goodness, this is all about Jesus. And yet it was written 700 years before Jesus ever even walked on this earth. So Isaiah was a prophet that God came to often, and when he spoke, the words he spoke, they carried a lot of weight. He wrote lots and lots of chapters, and people listened to Isaiah, and when Isaiah was around, people were like, oh my goodness, Isaiah's here. Everyone focus. Everyone listen, because this is important. So Isaiah starts off chapter 60, and this is the first thing he says. He says, arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. So the first thing he says, arise and shine. So he gives us a chance right here. He's given us a command, and he's saying we need to do something. So get up. Wherever you're at in your walk today, get up. Wherever the struggle is that's happening today, hey, it's time to get up. Wherever the thing is you can't let it go, get up. It's time to get up. Arise and shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. So in every day that we have, sometimes we don't see the sunrise. Sometimes we're not even sure if there is a sun when we're in Ohio. Like I'm looking in the back and I see the sunshine, and it's amazing. When you go outside today, if there's a yellow thing in the sky, it's called the sun. We see it 65 days a year in Ohio. And guess what? The gray and all that stuff, it depresses us at times. It wears us down at times. It's tough to even get out of bed sometimes. It's tough to move forward sometimes. Some people that deal with depression. Some people that deal with stress. Some people that deal with that anxiety. It's tough to even get out of bed because you're like, I'm just going to go outside and it's going to be so gloomy. It's going to be so gray. This is part of where we live. And yet, God says this, arise. Get up and go, because God's light is going to shine upon you, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. So there is a promise every day that each one of us, if we choose in 2019, we can take that promise that God has given us, the promise that He starts here with Isaiah and says this: get up and get moving. I'm here with you. And not only am I here with you, but I'm here shining upon you. It reminds me of the thought that came in my head is when someone comes on stage and the curtains are shut and all of a sudden, boom, the spotlight comes on and they follow the person all the way out. That light's upon them. That light pierces that darkness and boom, you can see that person that is standing there. And everyone fixes upon that light and fixes upon that person that is in that light. In this dark world, we need to be that light because God has promised that He will be with us and He will shine upon us and through us. And it's His glory that others have the opportunity to see. That's pretty cool. Because now it doesn't matter that I'm in a job for 20 years that I don't care for. Now it doesn't matter that I've run a business for 20 years that I don't care for. Now it doesn't matter that, hey, you know what, I don't even know why I chose this profession. Now it doesn't matter that, you know what, this day is just like my last day, which was like the day before, the week before, the month before, and the year before. Because God's light is upon me. And if God's light is upon me, then that means that I can shine God's light upon others. So God gives us that promise to begin with. And He says, see, darkness covers the earth, and thick darkness is over the peoples. See, darkness covers the earth, and thick darkness is over the peoples. We don't have to go very far to find out that there's darkness in this world, do we? We've seen struggles with families. We've seen struggles with sexuality, with gender. We've seen racial divides. We've seen people just saying whatever is on their mind. And it's gotten worse and worse as the years have gone by. I remember back when I was in college and there was a show that had become very, very popular, and it was Jerry Springer, and that show is still on today, and you would see people on the show and you're like, there's no way that people really live like that. And yet the next week they'd come back, and the next day they'd come back, and they kept finding people that live this way, live this way, live this way. Listen, when you see these things, you become so desensitized to it that you start realizing that people actually live this way, and there's more and more people that live this way. And they've been living like this forever. It's just now that TV and cable and internet and all that stuff is out there, it just is that much more, it's in your face. And here's what happens. People don't choose to live more godly. They're like, well, if other people are doing that, I can just live that same way. And maybe not to that extent, and maybe not that bad, but at the same time, I can just go ahead and live that same way. So it doesn't take us long to find darkness. We can find it in our work. We can find it in our schools. We can find it in our families. We can find it in where we live. It doesn't take us long to find that. But, here's the next part of it. It says, but the Lord rises upon you, and His glory appears over you. So, God's light shines on you, it shines through you, and it is upon you. Once again, like that person coming on stage, that light shines down upon them. That light comes from above, and that's God's light upon you and upon me. It says, but the Lord rises upon you, and His glory appears over you. Listen to this next thing. It says, nations will come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn. The next thing it says is, lift up your eyes and look about you. All assemble and come to you. Your sons come from afar, and your daughters are carried on the arm. So this represents the idea of having a family and how important that family is and what a family truly means. And so if you're a mom and dad getting ready for the first child, that family is important. If you've already raised your kids, you realize how important that family is. If you don't have any family, it's now this church family. You realize that you need to have those relationships, especially godly relationships with you and around you. But let's go back here for a second. Nations will come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn. Lift up your eyes and look about you. All assemble and come to you. See, here's the thing that we don't realize. And this is why we can make the choice to live differently next year. Every single day, if God's light is shining upon you, every day, if you choose to arise, if you choose to get up and say, all right, God, I'm going to live through you today and because of you today, and you make that choice, I'm going to allow God's light to shine upon me. Regardless of who I come in contact with, regardless of gender, regardless of race, regardless of religion, religious choice, regardless of who it is, I have the opportunity to affect someone today so that they can see God. Because quite frankly, people aren't seeing God very often today. We talked about it earlier about it doesn't take you long to find darkness. It's pretty easy to find it. You just have to listen to people talk. You just have to watch how people act. You just have to see how people treat other people. And it surely isn't in the name of God that they're treating them that way or talking to them that way. Because people just aren't very kind. But see, that's where we as believers, we get the opportunity so that in 2019, that we can live in such a way that people can see that difference in us because we're making the choice to affect someone that day. To affect them in such a way that they can't help but see God. So that first step, you've got to make the decision, okay, I'm going to allow God's light to shine through me. That's my deal with Him. My second deal that I'm making with God, all right, God, so here's the deal. I'm going to affect someone for you today. That means I'm going to show God to someone today. It may be just listening. It may be saying nothing. It may be just stepping back. It may be saying, oh, look, hey, all these things that I had these struggles with, all these things that I look back in 2018 and I messed up, you know what, I'm going to try to work on these one at a time so that others can see you. Because see, we can't get stuck in 2018. It's time to move forward into 2019. And I do that by living that light that God puts upon me and knowing that God has given me the opportunity to affect someone. And we can do it in so many ways. But we have to choose. The other day I was at Walmart on Arlington Road, and there was two young men that were there, and I hadn't seen them in a long, long time. And it's kind of funny, we don't think about this, and this is not one of those, hey, look what I did, because what I did was literally nothing. There was a lady that had just finished with her shopping cart, and it was probably 3 steps to where the shopping cart holder thing is. I don't know what those are called. And I just said to her, hey, you want me to grab that cart for you? And she looked at me, she's like, well, yeah, that was really nice. I go, no problem. Grabbed it, she shut the back of her thing, she hopped in her car, and I kept walking. All of a sudden I heard, hey, Pastor. And I stopped and I looked, and it was 2 young men that many years ago had come here, and now they're like all grown. So like, you know, when they were here, they were really, really small, and now they're bigger, and I can actually look at them eye to eye, and they're like, we knew you by your voice. We heard your voice, and my little brother said, hey, isn't that the pastor? And so they came over and we had a conversation, and I invited them to church, and they're like, yeah, we're going to get back because now they're old enough where they can drive on their own. Before, their parents had to drop them off and then leave, and they could only come on certain days or on Wednesdays or things like that. And the older brother told me, hey, it's so important for him to be there. And I'm like, well, it's so important for you guys both to be there. So I invited them back, and guess what? I haven't seen them. They're not here. But I'm not going to stop. So, and I mean, literally, I cannot stress you how little of a deal this was. All I did was grab a shopping cart. And she could have walked 6 feet and put the thing in. I thought, I'll just grab it because it was cold and rainy and windy, all that kind of stuff. I said, I got it for you. No big deal. I never thought about 2 other people that were close enough by that would recognize a voice and have the opportunity to invite them back. Now, they may not show up next week. They may not show up next month. They may not show up for 3 months. But I got to believe that at some point in some time that they're going to want to hear the voice of God, and they're going to want to come back so they can hear that message. But it's in those small moments especially that we have the opportunity to shine. Because even if those 2 people weren't there, and just because it was just a small shopping cart, just that kindness to one person. And you want to know why I did that? Do you want to know why? I did it so that I knew those 2 guys were there and that they would lift me. No, I didn't do that. I didn't even know they were there. I did it because that's what I was taught to do. I did it because someone else used to do that. I did that because that's what I saw my parents do. That's what I saw them teach my brothers and sisters do. I saw them to say, hey, you go out of your way and you do that. And by the way, I was taught that the golden rule was you do unto others as you'd have done unto you. Not that he who has the gold makes the rule, because that's the deal we all want to make. God, if you give me more, then I'll do more, and then I'll be more, and then I'll offer more, and then on and all those other kind of things. That's the deal that I want to make. Is that when you give me enough, well, hasn't God blessed us enough? The fact that we can come in here and worship together, the fact that we have loved ones in our lives, the fact that God's going to bring people that we get an opportunity to love, it's just in those small moments. But when Jesus said, do unto others as you would have done unto you, that's the golden rule. Those are the words of Jesus. Why is it so difficult? Do you want to know why? Because the one person that gets in your way and the one person that gets in my way the most, and the reason that I don't live the way that I want to live before God is me. And yet, when I tell myself, Lord, I'm going to get up today and you're already with me. God, I got up today because you're with me. And now I have this opportunity to go and make an impact on somebody. And it doesn't have to be a huge impact. It doesn't have to be a great big thing that I did. It could be something that someone has never thought of. I'll give you a perfect example. The day after Christmas, I look out and a friend of mine, dear friend of mine, I've known him for, I can't tell you how long, and I love him and I love his family. His daughters were both in my youth group. I look out and he's like in my driveway, and he's like walking around, and he's got these orange sticks that have like the reflector things on them, and he's just out there knocking them in the ground in my driveway. And I'm like, what's he doing? And because I didn't really know. Because I didn't really know what the orange sticks were. I just watched him. He's knocking them in, put them in. Well, we had just moved, so we have a real long driveway. And he comes up and he's like, hey, I put these in. Comes up and gives me a hug. I'm like, okay, I appreciate that. He's like, because the snow's going to come, here shortly, and you kind of need these as guide markers. And I didn't even think anything about it. And sure enough, I'll tell you what, I'm driving down and I see these things and I'm like, man, when it goes to snow and that snow comes up, I don't even know if I would know how to get out of my driveway. We just moved there. And he put these guide markers all the way along so I know where to drive. And it's not so much me, it's more for my kids, because if I don't have those guide markers, I can already see my kids driving through the trees and making their own paths and coming all the way around and driving through the neighbor's yard. And I'm looking out in the trees and I see Nathan driving through the trees and Jacob's chasing him behind him. I mean, that's in my mind what I'm picturing. I don't have to worry about that now. But God gives us those markers at times. And God brings us people to put those markers in to say, hey, look, sometimes you need that direction as to where to go. This is something I would have never thought of. I don't even know what these things are. I wouldn't know where to get them. I wouldn't know where to purchase them. I don't even know what the names of them are. To me, I saw 2 orange sticks with them. I'm thinking, oh, we can have sword fights. That's how I think. That's just my thought process. But they're guide markers along so I can actually drive back in my driveway. It was one of the kindest things. And my wife and I were talking about it. We're like, he didn't have to do that. That's not something he had to do. That's not something I would ever do. I would ever even think to do. And yet, he thought about that. That's kindness, because he's thinking of others. That's what he would like to have done on himself. But he did it as well because that's what God put in him. God puts eternity in our hearts. Do we live in such a way that we're living eternally in the temporary? We have no idea what it means to others. A friend of mine just came up to me right before church and we were talking a little bit, and she was talking to me about Hope Outreach. And if you guys have never been down to Hope Outreach and you're like, hey, I'd kind of like to help out in a mission, 4th Sunday of every month, our church goes down to Hope Outreach in Canton. We do it during this time. Why? Because that's when it's our time to serve. And so we take a group of 8 to 12 people on the 4th Sunday and they head down, and it's life-changing. And that's what she shared with me today. She was like, I'm going to try to go every time. Our family's going to go, because it really makes you think, oh my goodness, a lot of these people, they just made one bad decision. A lot of these people, they just didn't have one person that was there to stop them. A lot of these people, they didn't have anyone to turn to. A lot of these people, I'm going to do my own thing, and no one was there to say, hey, your own thing might not be the best thing. But a lot of them, it's because they chose to walk in the darkness, and there was no light there next to them, and there was no one choosing to affect them in such a way that they could see God. So, when I get up, I'm going to get up and I'm going to live with this promise that God, I already know you're with me, that you're shining upon me. And I'm going to get up, number 2, and I'm going to affect someone so that they can see God. Lift your eyes up and look about you. Verse 4, all assemble and come to you. Your sons come from afar and your daughters are carried on the arm. And verse 5, watch what it says next. It says then. So that's the next thing. Then you will look and be radiant. Your heart will throb and swell with joy. The wealth on the seas will be brought to you. To you riches of the nations will come. And so here's the thing. We read that and we're thinking, oh, that means I'm going to prosper and I'm going to get rich and I'm going to have all these great things that are going on. And this is where we miss it many times with God. And this is where our deal with God is, if I do these things, then it just makes sense that I'll be okay from a financial standpoint, or I'll be richer, I'll get the promotion, I'll get the bonus, I'll get these things I haven't even seen. That could all come. It could happen. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And what you do with it is something that could be wrong with it, but that's a whole other story for a whole other day. But God will bless you in such a way that you can't help but see God in those moments. And so if I arise with Him every day and I know His light is upon me, and if I choose to affect people so that they can see God, every day now, I'll have a deeper appreciation of God and His love. Because instead of keeping Him in the passenger seat or in the back seat, I'm walking alongside of Him every day. And so now my new year doesn't have to worry about resolutions. Doesn't have to be about a number, a goal that I'll never reach. Doesn't have to be about a number of pounds I have to get rid of. Doesn't have to be about, got to make this much more or do this much more, and those other kind of things. Every day, if my deal with God is this, to just know that when I arise, His light is upon me. And every day that when I walk with His light and in His light, that I'm going to affect someone. And every day I'm going to gain a deeper appreciation of God's work in my life. Sometimes people will notice. Sometimes people won't. Sometimes people will care. Other times they're not going to. Sometimes they're going to show their appreciation. Other times they're just going to be like, hey, that's what I deserve. But if we're going to live this next year differently, we're going to take the areas that we had to struggle, we're going to look at them for a little while, and then we're going to let them go. And we're going to say, this is how I'm going to make them better for 2019. And this is where, I wasn't sure why I made this decision, but you know what? I don't have to worry about that because 2019 is coming up. And here's how I'm going to make a deal, not with God, but a deal with myself. I'm going to rise every day knowing that His light is upon me and that it shines upon me. I'm going to live in such a way that I have the opportunity to affect someone every single day for Him. And when I do those things, I'm going to stop long enough to appreciate what God has given me in this life as I look toward the next one. That is how we make a deal. We don't do it with God. We do it with ourselves so that others can see God. That is how we change the struggles of the past and the struggles of a year and turn them into opportunities walking alongside God. And that is how 2019 can start if you choose and I choose to do so. From the words of a prophet who died hundreds and hundreds of years before Jesus ever walked this earth, but who pointed to Him directly. So I want you to challenge yourself to arise each day with God's light, to take His light and to go out and show it to others. And then even when no one else notices, or even when others do, that you appreciate what God has given you and God has blessed you with every single day of 2019. Would you all bow your heads please with me and let's say a word of prayer. God, I thank You for this year. I know there were struggles. Lord, I know there are people out here right now that are dealing with things that they didn't expect, maybe even just a couple days ago. Lord, we've all had loss. We've all had people that have put us down. We've all had people say things about us that we know that are unfair. We've all had things break. We've all made poor decisions. There's all these things we wish we had done a little bit differently. Maybe that we could change. God, it's fine to look at those, but God, would You help us just for a moment to look within and say, what is it we can do to make a change for next year? Because all those things have already happened. Some we could control, some we couldn't. But God, with You with us, Lord, we can appreciate them that much more when we would just take the time to start our day, arise with You, arise with Your light. God, we would take that light and shine it upon others to affect people that we may not even know and to affect the people that we love the most and everyone in between. And God, each and every day, would you help us to stop long enough to appreciate the life that you give us and appreciate you within our lives. God, that's a deal that we want to make with ourselves. And Lord, that's the way that we want to live our lives every single day with you. Lord, we love you. It's in your name that we pray. Amen. Would you all please stand?